I was lying in that cold hospital bed, stitches still burning across my chest when I reached for my phone and typed into our family chat, "Who can pick me up from the hospital?" I stared at the screen, waiting just a single word, a sign of care. Seconds later, my son replied, "Call a taxi. I'm watching TV." Before the sting could even fade, another bubble appeared. His wife, "Stay another month. It's so nice without you here." My heart mended by surgeons cracked again in silence. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I just set the phone down. And that's when the storm inside me began. But that very night, when they turned on the evening news, they would see my face and nothing in their world would ever be the same again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The monitors around me kept their steady rhythm, each beat marking another second I had been granted. You'd think that after heart surgery, every breath would feel like a gift, but in that moment, each breath was a reminder of betrayal. I had gone through a bypass, had metal wires holding my chest together, and still the pain that crushed me hardest came not from the wound, but from those words glowing cold on the screen. It's a strange thing to survive the knife of a surgeon, only to be cut deeper by your own blood. My son Daniel, 35 years old, a man I once carried on my shoulders through summer fairs, a boy I once tucked into bed with stories now reduced me to a nuisance, an afterthought less deserving than the flicker of his television. His wife, Claire, sharp-tongued, always polite in public, but poisonous in private, sealing the wound with salt. "Stay another month. It's so nice without you here." The nurse came in adjusting my IV line, unaware that a different kind of line had just been severed forever. "You're recovering well, Mr. Harland," she said softly. "Doctor says you'll be strong enough to go home tomorrow." Home? The word stung. Which home? The house I had signed over to Daniel years ago, believing he'd raise his family there with dignity. The place where my photographs had slowly disappeared from the mantelpiece, replaced by Claire's scented candles and trendy decorations. The place where I became a shadow, tolerated, then ignored, and finally told outright that my presence was a burden. I nodded to the nurse, keeping my face calm. That was my way. I wasn't a man of outbursts. Years in the Navy had trained me to keep storms inside, until they could be aimed with precision. She left, and I turned my face toward the rain-spattered window. The sky was a dull gray, the city blurred by water streaks. Cars moved below like insects, each person hurrying to somewhere they mattered. I had asked for so little, a ride home, a gesture, and what I received was exile in plain text. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up the phone again, but not from weakness. No weakness was leaving me. A strange calm set in. I scrolled through the family chat history messages, filled with requests. Daniel asking me to co-sign his mortgage. Claire reminding me of the check I wrote for their honeymoon, the down payment for the car they drove. Now, line after line of proof I had given, and they had taken. When had it ever been the other way around? The stitches in my chest pulled when I shifted, a sharp reminder that I wasn't invincible, but I smiled anyway. The body heals slowly, but a plan can take shape in an instant. I closed my eyes, letting the memory wash over me. Daniel at 12, sick with the flu, curled up on the couch. I had driven across town at midnight for the only pharmacy still open, carried him inside, whispered, "I've got you, son." I spoon-fed him broth, checked his fever every hour. That boy had once looked at me like I was unshakable. What happened to that boy? When did he disappear? A vibration snapped me back. Another message in the chat, not from Daniel this time, but from my daughter Rebecca. "Dad, I wish I could help, but I'm out of state. I'll call you later." Rebecca, always the softer one. She lived in Denver, working double shifts at a clinic, barely making ends meet. She didn't have much, but she never failed to send me a card on birthdays, a call on Sundays. She couldn't be here, but at least she cared enough to explain. That one message meant more than all of Daniel's obligations stacked together. The nurse returned once more. "You'll be discharged in the morning, Mr. Harlan. Will someone be here to take you home?" I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Yes, I finally said. Not a lie. Not exactly. Someone would take me home. Just not the people she imagined. That night, as the ward settled into silence, machines humming like low crickets in the dark, I reached for the small leather-bound notebook I kept in the drawer, a habit from my Navy days, writing down thoughts, keeping a record. Tonight my entry was short. August 12th, surgery successful, heart repaired, family broken. Tonight the storm begins. I underlined the last sentence twice. The following morning, sunlight streamed pale and indifferent through the blinds. A volunteer wheeled me out to the curb. I hadn't called Daniel. I hadn't even considered it. Instead, I dialed yellow cab. The driver, an older man with lines carved deep around his eyes, helped me into the back seat without a word. Strange how a stranger's hand on your elbow could feel warmer than your own family's. As the cab pulled into traffic, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. The city blurred past billboards, diners, tired people clutching coffee cups. Every corner held a memory where I taught Daniel to drive, where I bought Claire her first Christmas gift, where I once thought our family had roots. Each memory now soured, each landmark a reminder of what had been taken. The cab driver glanced at me through the mirror. "Hospital stay?" he asked. I nodded. "Heart surgery. You look like you pulled through," he said. "I did," I answered quietly. "More than they expected." He didn't press further. That was the kind of mercy strangers sometimes gave, respecting silence. Back at the apartment I had rented after signing the house over to Daniel, I moved slowly, careful not to strain my chest. The place was small, one bedroom sparsely furnished, but it was mine. Mine alone. No sharp remarks, no cold stares, just quiet. I lowered myself into the armchair by the window, set my phone on the side table, and turned on the television for background noise. The evening news anchor spoke over footage of a community fundraising drive, images of volunteers, loading boxes of supplies for veterans. I froze. There was my old friend Delaney in the clip. Frank had served with me years ago now, running a charity for veterans housing. I hadn't seen him in a decade, but the sight sparked something fierce. The anchor said, "We'll have more on this story tomorrow. Local veterans stepping up to support those in need." I leaned forward, every nerve alive. There it was, the opening. They wanted to forget me, erase me, but the world would see me, and not as the frail old man they dismissed. No, I would stand where cameras could not ignore, where truth would burn brighter than their lies. The storm inside me swelled, and for the first time since that cold hospital bed, I felt my heart beat, not with pain, but with purpose. The kettle on my little stove clicked itself off, a soft metal sigh that traveled across the quiet of the apartment. I had set it to boil, and then forgotten about it, lost in a stare at the window where last night's rain had dried into faint mineral threads. I poured the water over a tea bag, watched the dark seep into the cup like a bruise spreading under skin. On the counter, the pill organizer glinted, a practical blue: morning, noon and night. The hospital bracelet still circled my wrist. I slid a fingernail under the edge and peeled it off slowly, like taking away an old label. It left a whisper of adhesive faint, but there I took the cup to the chair by the window, and let the heat find my palms. Downtown was already bright with busyness. A delivery truck double parked, a man in a neon vest waving apologetically at honking drivers. A dog, pausing at a fire hydrant like he owned the block. I sipped, grimaced, and added honey. Somewhere in the hallway, an elevator thuded open then closed. A weekday morning, ordinary, almost comfortingly so, and yet all the ordinary things had a new hard edge. You don't come home from a surgeon's table the same. Even if the stitches knit right, you see the seams everywhere. Your life held together by quiet, invisible threads. You never noticed until they pulled. The steam fogged my glasses. I took them off, wiped with the corner of my shirt, and when I put them back on, the world came into focus along with a memory. Odd how the mind chooses stitches. Trigger stitches. A different hospital. A different hallway. The air smelling of pure snow because we had tracked in flakes on our boots. Daniel had been 5, maybe 6. He'd fallen on the playground and split his chin. He was small and furious about the stitches, kicking violently at the doctor's stool until I held his ankles and whispered, "If you're brave right now, I'll show you the scar and you can match me." I tilted my head and pointed to the little half-moon on my own chin from a bicycle crash back in '71. He stopped fighting. He watched wide-eyed as the needle did its work. He let me hold him after his cheek, damp against my coat. On the drive home he said, "Do scars ever go away?" I told him, "Sometimes they just learn to stop hurting." When the tea had cooled enough to drink without caution, I opened the drawer and pulled out the shoebox I kept there. A body learns its rituals over time. Coffee cans full of screws, jars of pennies beside the door, and one battered shoebox with a rubber band holding it shut. In it were paper-thin pieces of the old Life Little League snapshots, a Father's Day card, and shaky second-grade print, a ticket stub from a county fair where the lights had made Daniel gasp. I don't keep these out in the open. I take them out when I need them, and then I put them away. It's a discipline like anything else. There's a picture of Daniel at 12 capsizing in triumph over a science fair project. Balsa wood bridge weight slung beneath his mouth, forming an ope as the teacher kept adding sandbags. He'd been bad at glue, big lumpy lines of it, but good at measuring. He squinted the way I do when I read numbers. We celebrated with milkshakes at a Formica counter, and he had leaned over, giving me a whipped cream mustache, said, "You're going to be proud of me my whole life, aren't you?" I had laughed and promised something I thought was simple and forever. Pride is a generous thing, until it's taken hostage. The phone buzzed. I thought for a heartbeat it might be Daniel and Claire waking into a better version of themselves. It was Rebecca, a blinking name against the screen. "Hey Dad," she said, her voice soft and careful like she was approaching a skittish horse. "Are you home?" "I am," I said. "The taxi delivered me safe and sound. No valet service, but the driver had good stories." "I'm sorry I couldn't fly back," she said. "My supervisor. Well, you know how the clinic is. We're short 2 nurses and I know, sweetheart." I said, "You sent a message. It mattered." I let silence sit. "Not wounded." "True. How's the altitude?" She laughed. "Still high. And my patient count is higher." "Dad, I saw the messages." They shouldn't talk to you like that. Even if they were frustrated. Even if it's information," I said. "Now we know, and we can act on what we know." I hadn't planned to say that last part, but it left my mouth like it was decided long ago. A rustle on her end, papers moving. "Act how?" "By being very clear," I said. "Clarity can be a kind of mercy. You sound like you did when I flunked geometry and you taped a calendar on the fridge," she said. "Boxes with check marks. Scary calm. That was a good calendar," I said, a smile moving through me without effort. "Dad," she said quietly, "do you need me to call Daniel for you?" "No," I said. "He knows where the phone is. Let's not make anyone do anything they don't mean." I didn't say the rest. Having someone do the right thing without meaning it is a sort of theft. You lose the chance to see what's true. You take care of yourself. We'll talk this weekend. Okay. A pause. "I love you." "I know." I said, "I love you too." After we hung up, I put the phone face down and watched my neighbor's cat saunter along the fire escape, sure of its territory. The cup had cooled to lukewarm. I drank it anyway.